it's exactly 300 kilometers straight line distance from Odessa to Sevastopol. So if Ukraine had ATACMS right now, they could already be making Crimea untenable for Russian forces, for the Russian Navy in Sevastopol, for Russian air bases, for where the Iranians are helping to train and set up their drone launching sites. All the different things that make Crimea important for Russia could be already getting pounded by Ukrainian long-range fires. I mean, look at the reaction of the Russians when the Ukrainians launched their own drones, the maritime drones. What happened there? They relocated their submarine fleet after one drone hit Sevastopol. So you can imagine the impact if they were regularly dropping ATACMS or similar type long-range precision weapons into the critical military facilities in Crimea. Obviously, I'd like to associate myself with everything that my three fellow panel members have said. I can't add much to what they've said, except that the administration can't bring themselves to say the words, "We want Ukraine to win." And so that is policy. And I think part of this is because of a traditional sense that somehow Russia can't be defeated, that we're going to need Russia, and we're really focused on China and all that. And I think the way Wes said that earlier is better than I could. But it's also because they don't believe that Ukraine can win. I mean, I know that for a fact. They don't believe that Ukraine can actually win. And so when you combine that with the notion, this exaggerated sense of fear that Russia might escalate, it causes them not to do certain things that would help Ukraine win more quickly. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because of bad policy and an exaggerated fear that Russia might somehow magically come up with a new thing to escalate, when in fact, we have been self-deterring ourselves since the first argument about whether or not to give Javelin, and then an argument about whether or not to give Stinger. Holy hell, now we're delivering Patriot, and Russia has not escalated a single time because they have nothing with which to escalate other than the threat of use of a nuclear weapon. And their nukes are really most effective when they don't use them, because once they do use them, then it's absolutely going to be over for them. And I think that the Kremlin and the Russian General Staff believe President Biden when he said that there would be catastrophic consequences. I think they believe that. And that so I think that the likelihood of Russia being able to escalate with a nuclear weapon is very, very low. And even if they did, it would not change anything on the battlefield, and they would lose any hope they had of some sort of sympathy from most European countries. Now, I would like to make just one more comment. Phil brought up Patriot earlier, and I love Patriot. We had one battalion for all of Europe. It was always my biggest concern when I was commander of U.S. Army Europe that we could not defend anything other than maybe Ramstein Air Base. I mean, it'd take the whole battalion of Patriot to defend Ramstein Air Base. So that gives you some sense of the requirement and the challenge. And I certainly never, or I failed to anticipate that Russia would use precision weapons like they are against civilian targets. I was always thinking we have to protect Ramstein, we have to protect Bremerhaven, we have to protect critical infrastructure. The requirement now is to protect about 450 million people. And so the requirement is so much more significant. And of course, you air defense doesn't come in a box. I mean, you have to practice and train. And how do you link together airborne platforms, all the sensors, all the different types of shooters, and making sure that you're not shooting down a friendly airliner or a friendly aircraft? It is very, very hard in a heavily contested electronic warfare environment. So I think I'm sure that we are learning a lot watching what's happening now. The Patriot battery that's going, that is a gigantic step up in terms of capability, but in terms of capacity, probably it will be enough to protect Kyiv if it's properly integrated into all the other existing systems. I mean, that's what we're talking about, is basically one city. When we had Patriot deployed Turkey to protect Turks from Scud missiles flying out of Syria, you had an American Patriot battery that basically was responsible for protecting the city of Adana. You had a Dutch battery that was responsible for protecting Incirlik. And then Phil will remember the German battery was up in Kahraman Maraş protecting another populated area. And that's what we're talking about. So having reasonable expectations for what Patriot will do, I think will be important. I think even the most hardcore committed Kremlin verstehers, Germans who, were sympathetic or had that line, I think they actually feel betrayed by what has happened over the past year. And so I live here in Frankfurt, and I just don't see and hear it from many of the Germans that I interact with that are in business or academia or in government. It's not there. There still is. We still have a ways to go. That has not yet translated into better policy decisions because of the left wing of the SPD, which is the lead party in this German coalition, has so much DNA that makes it difficult for them to take a more forward-leaning, aggressive stance. And so Chancellor Scholz is held back by that, I think. But nonetheless, I don't hear it nearly as much as I did even a year ago when people would say, come on, Crimea was always Russia. I mean, that nonsense. Let me say this, Bob. First of all, Ukraine is in fact going to win. They have achieved irreversible momentum. There's nothing that the Russians have or can do that is going to turn it back. As long as we stick with Ukraine, they will retain irreversible momentum. That doesn't mean we don't have many months left of really terrible fighting and that many thousands of innocent people are going to be killed. I'm sure the Russians will attempt some sort of a new offensive with these mobilized troops that they're going to send to their death without proper training or equipment or even halfway good leadership. They're going to attempt that, but they don't have anything, in my view, that can undo this momentum. I mean, think of this, since 2014 when this started, and then you look at the latest ISW map that shows how much Russia controls. That's humiliating. I mean, the Black Sea Fleet is hiding and Ukraine doesn't even have a navy. And so the Russians really can't do much more. And I don't understand why we keep deterring ourselves. I think that the next 2 months, we're going to see, of course, terrible fighting around Bakhmut and Crimea and the other cities up in the kind of the northeast corner there. But no matter what they put against the Ukrainians keep killing them. And you get the feel that pretty soon these terrible weather conditions, that soldiers who are untrained are not committed to defending their own country. They don't belong to formations that are trained and believe in each other. They don't believe in their own leaders, and they know there's no logistics system backing them up. Those cannot survive or be effective in the pressure of combat. I think that we're going to see the next 2 months continued pounding by the Ukrainian General Staff against Russian logistics, Russian transport, Russian headquarters. The General Staff has really impressed me with how professional they are, how thorough they are, how methodical they are. And they're setting the conditions now for the decisive phase of the campaign, which will be the liberation of Crimea. I think they're going to accomplish that by the end of August. Ukraine will never be safe as long as Russia possesses Ukraine. They'll never be safe, and they'll never be able to rebuild their economy as long as Russia possesses Crimea. So that's the main effort. All roads lead to Crimea, and I think they're going to accomplish that.